Thanks very much, Mark. And thank you to the Ad Club for having me here today. I'm thrilled to be leading this panel discussion with two esteemed professionals from the front line of data in the health and wellness industries. We've got Gil Blonder and Peter Borden. Gil is a scientist with a PhD in biology, and he's also the founder and chief scientific officer of Inside Tracker. Gil will be joined by Peter Borden, managing director, commercial health at Sapient. Please join me in welcoming them both to the stage. Just in case you can't see their name tags, this is Gil, and this is Peter. Gentlemen, welcome to our discussion. I'm not sure, but actually we didn't discuss this previously. You may have heard this weekend that James Madera, who runs the AMA, gave a speech slamming what he called digital snake oil in the form of apps that are basically meant to replace doctors. The industry is really grappling with this stuff, obviously, and consumers are being increasingly barraged with messages about how technology can improve their health. So we're lucky in that our panelists have deep expertise in this domain. Gil is not a marketing guy, and he's been very keen to ask me to portray that. So he's had to learn on the job how to reach consumers with his technology. Peter has counseled countless businesses on how to grow and market new technologies in this space. So I'd actually like to start off by asking both of you where we are with consumer behavior right now. It's safe to say we no longer live in a build it and they will come kind of domain. So when it comes to engaging consumers around digital health tracking, what's the behavior like now? Peter, we'll start with you.
Well, I think that there's, as we can see, there's tremendous amount of exploration and innovation going on out there. But at least from my perspective, if you think about different behavioral segments, and Brent mentioned a few earlier, the ones that we talk about are really four. You've got the warriors who are all about optimizing performance, right? And you've got the strivers who they're trying hard, but they, back at Sapient, I think today's Cookie Monday, which I hate, right? Because you walk by and you fight with like I want it, so they need help at the moment. And then you got the strugglers who don't even know where to get started. And then the fourth segment we talk about are the champions, who are the family and the caregivers. I think a lot of the experiences that we're seeing innovation around are very much targeted to the warriors, right? The ones who want to optimize performance. And this is an exciting group for us to think about. And matter of fact, I think a lot of aspiration goes there. Mm-hmm. But we've seen maybe 5 to 20% of the market, depending on what groups you're looking at, are the warriors. And so we'd love to see more attention on the striver and really understanding that the experience has to help them change their behavior and sustain those changes. Mm-hmm. And not just if you just give them data, if you give them another dashboard, if you give them another data point, that's probably not going to be enough for them. So how do you give them data in a meaningful way that's going to get them to take a new action, feel that they can, actually feel like this is something they can do, they have the self-efficacy, and then help them sustain it.
It's that exchange that's the key.
Absolutely, right.
Okay. Gil, what do you see?
Yeah, we see a similar verticals. We call them the train, gain, and pain. The train are the athletic active. The gain are more like people like me, middle-aged, that want to live better and live longer. And then we have the pain, which are the sick population.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain to the audience who's not familiar with or may not be familiar with your technology, just generally how it works?
Yeah, so we develop a personalized health analytics that help people to improve their performance, wellness, and health based on a blood analysis. So people test their blood, and we extract the liquid gold. And based on that, we can tell you what food you should eat, what supplement you should take or stop taking. We've seen that a lot of our users are consuming too many supplements. What kind of exercise you should do and what kind of lifestyle changes you should do. For example, sleep more or sleep less, mainly sleep more, be less stressful, and so on and so forth. So that's what we are doing currently.
Okay. So the idea of these groups, these vertical behavioral markets really resonates, I imagine even for administrators at hospitals or clinics, but the obvious task for marketers is to find ways to reach these groups in different ways. it's not wasting your marketing dollars. And so I'm curious, Peter, what jumps out at you when it comes to the best ways to reach these various verticals?
Yeah. I think first there has to be a shift, or we're seeing a shift from how marketers are approaching it, and that, it used to be sort of mass marketing, get a message out, and it's now moving more to precision marketing as we know more about who we're targeting and when and at the moment. And it's also moving from message to experience-led, right? And so in that case, you're gonna be very clear about wanting to have the data in order to be able to know who you're trying to target. And increasingly, we're hoping that you understand where they are in their journey, whether it's their behavior change journey or understanding, I think Brent was talking about psychometrics. We're even looking at understanding of personality, so that you can give a very specific message that's going to resonate most with them. And for me, the test is it driving to some new action, which is, again, leading to behavior change. So, I talk about last year I said I was going to get fit, and I got the Fitbit, and it was working. But I noticed that, when I got to a certain point that I was exercising, running every day and all that, I was ready for a challenge, and there's a tab, are you ready for a challenge? And yes, I am. And I go to it, and it's weekend warrior. Who amongst your buddies can work out take the most steps? Well, I'm an introvert. I'm not an extrovert, right? So for me, that was actually very much of a turnoff and something I didn't want to engage in. Whereas something like Zombies Run, right, which is this thing it puts you in a story, and the more you work out, the more you get part of the story, right? I mean, that's an introvert's dream. Right. So the point being, though, that I think for marketers, you need to think about how do you put out experiences, again, whether it's the warrior, the striver, the struggler, or it's something relating to their personality. How do you use experience as a way to extend the brand-consumer relationship? So it's not just getting them to buy the thing, but actually getting them to use it to get some meaningful value that they then want to extend that relationship with. And increasing lifetime value and all of those good things.
Right, and then you had mentioned in a previous discussion something, you'd cited some really interesting numbers around the number of health-related apps that are downloaded, the number that are actually kept, and the number in which people
So we just heard from Mark, right, that 36 or 50% of the downloads, right? But if you think about it, that's just the downloads, and so how many of them are used for more than 3 or 4 times, and how many of them lead to behavior change? And what we're finding is there are techniques out there, points and or money that can be used to get somebody into an experience, right? You can have an emotional message. We heard that from Kristen, right? You can play to empathy, and we think empathy is a huge factor that's being underused, right? People are pushing more features, not enough empathy. Empathy is going to get you into the experience, right? But then how do you continue to use empathy to help that person, again, when that cookie's in front of you, or when you need that extra support, or when you need support from a community, right? And so it's understanding the techniques to go beyond the download and get into continual use.
I don't think I've ever heard empathy spoken more than in the past few months, in the past year, especially with regard to marketing, online marketing in particular. It sounds like a good trend to me. So Gil, what do you think in terms of reaching these different siloed masses within your customer
I think
base?
that it's a very tough question. I think that it's uncharged water in a way, because until now the healthcare system believe that everyone is coming to the physician and they don't have any choice, and suddenly we're coming to healthy people like you and me and telling you need to pay for that and you need to do that, and we need to explain to you why you should do that. So I think that it's a big struggle in this direction, and I think that the best marketing is to have a high quality product that you will see what is the value versus the cost. If the cost is as high as our product, and our product is expensive, it's between $100 to $500, and it's not covered by anything, you need to pay from your pocket, you need to believe and see the value of the product. So I think that first of all is the the value of the product should be high, and luckily we can see that that's working for us. But in addition to that, as both of you said, you should to cater to a specific market. So we can see right now that for us, the train or the athletic active population have much more reason to use InstaTracker because we are helping them to make their PR, their personal best in a marathon. Or we are helping them to stay on the court and play on the NBA for another year. Or helping an executive to be awake and be as smart as he can in a board meeting. So that's what is the population that we are catering for them right now. We are not trying yet to cater for the sick population because first, they're less motivated, and second, they have unfortunately less money in their pockets, so it's not currently our main market, but we will go there, and the way to go there is to improve the product, make it more streamlined, and dumb it down in a bit.
Right now, it's the high achievers.
Yes.
Okay, did you, the NHL angle, is that public?
Oh, yeah, you can see.
How many, so you
is
mentioned it, I thought that was quite interesting. You had, what is it, 100 different NHL players on your?
Yeah, we have more than 25 different professional teams that using InstaTracker. So we have a lot of professional athletes using us, but that's not my passion. My passion is to help any diabetic and any cardiovascular disease patient to be better. But in order to go to them, you need to find the client that will pay right now. So.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's hear some more stories. Which methods have each of you seen that have, or tried, that have failed? Miserably or otherwise?
Yeah, I guess the first bucket I'll put out there is I think content strategy needs to be really thought of carefully. There are too many companies out there who say, well, we're just going to give them information. We're going to have a health encyclopedia. That will be great. And this idea that if you put information out there, maybe even at the right literacy level, that's people are actually going to do something with it. That they're motivated not just to read it, but then they know how to actually action that. So for me, that's the first failure, and the first time I cringe is when somebody's like, yeah, we'll just put an encyclopedia out. The second big problem I've seen is when you put content out there thinking that your brand has the right to have the content out there or can compete. And what I mean by that, so I talk a lot about that black bean soup recipe that you have all seen either in your health insurance like monthly newsletter or you've all seen it. Latest search, so I think it's 178 million results for black bean soup and diabetes, right? And I went to like page 30 of the results, the Google results, and it still had new recipes for black bean soup. I don't think anyone has ever made in the history of the internet that recipe. And yet it's always there. And the point is, why would you? Because if you want a recipe, you're going to go to a place that has good recipes, right? And the same thing, if you want to be educated about health, you're going to go to places where the brand is there. I see a lot of companies that say, well, we're going to compete, but they don't have the editorial staff necessary to engage in the right way, right? To put the content out. So we did a lot of work for England in putting out their site for the entire country, and we put content out for teenage boys. It was written very differently than for senior citizen women, but there's an expense there, and you have to commit to continuing with that content.
Oh God, yeah, you got to keep it up to date.
Absolutely,
That's an army of editorial.
So the biggest mistake is just thinking, oh well, we can do that, or the other is a gamification. Well, let's just gamify it, right? as if you're going to compete with companies whose job it is to make money from good gaming. Right, and not understanding the construct behind it, or let's just make it social. Mm-hmm. I have lots of stories. I'll pause there.
All right, Gil, how about you in terms of war stories? What has not worked for you?
Maybe we'll start with what's working.
Oh, come on.
It's easier.
It's a total cop-out.
So again, as a scientist, I believe in numbers. So we are using HubSpot, which I assume all of you are aware of. And it's a great inbound marketing tool that we can know exactly which person is coming from where and what he's doing. And then you can have a salesperson to hunt him and to basically bring the fish to the small pond and then hunt them.
In case they didn't understand that, it's HubSpot.
HubSpot. And Yeah, and everyone should.
Hubs. Yeah, thank you.
It's a tool that every marketer should know.
That's right.
But what we have seen that working the best for us, and again, I don't know if it will work for other, is like a client that like the product, writing a blog about it. And surprisingly, most of them are women. Our majority of our clients currently are males, but we have more and more women that use the product, amazed about the capability, and then starting to write blogs about it, and suddenly we see that all their friends and their followers are coming. So I think that that's basically the best marketing tool is someone else will write about you and say that you're great. I think that that's something that somehow are working for us. And it makes sense because if you look at women, women are actually managing, they are the CMO, not chief marketing officer, but chief medical officer of the house. So they are basically running the house and making all the decisions. I see it in my household, and I'm the PhD, and my wife is not, and she decides what kind of drug I should take whenever I'm sick. So when women make the decision, they have at least the cloud of the family, but they have a bigger cloud, and they are, I assume, much smarter than us, so it's working pretty well.
I don't think I'm going to touch that one. So we will have time for Q&A from the audience. I'll mention that, though. Geez, what was I going to ask? Oh, yeah, your failures.
Okay.
Let's hear them.
There are a lot.
What has not
so any sponsor marketing didn't work for us. Facebook, Google are here. It doesn't work for us, and the reason is that it's not intent buying. It's not like you have a car, and you know that in 2 years from now the car broke and you need a new car. Here it's a completely new idea, so you need to educate them and you need to help them to understand. It's a very long process. So we see that it's much easier with a key opinion leader or with education that is coming from us and not something that we are trying to hunt in a very big ocean. So all the paid marketing didn't work for us.
Wow, it's kind of depressing. Unless you learn that very quickly and then just...
No, we learned that very quickly, and we are actually it's good because we're not spending money.
Yeah, that's a huge upside, right? So then the big question is, how do you get the key opinion leaders to love you publicly?
I think that it's pretty, again, I won't say that it's easy, but everyone that we are talking with love the idea and would like to try it. And surprisingly, we are not paying anyone. So we have, if you are looking at a specific vertical that we are working on and we have a strong success is the CrossFit community, if you know what is CrossFit. And a lot of the professional athletes at the CrossFit using InstaTracker, they love it. The CrossFit, if you know, they love Instagram, so they are posting what they ate, when they went to the loo, when they came back for the loo, when they lift something. So they are posting a lot of, and they are also posting when they went to the phlebotomist and took the blood, and they're posting the result, and they love that the results are good, or they are not happy that the results are not good, and it's working well. So more and more coming, and I think that again the CrossFit is a sort of a community that have, I see it, I'm Jewish, so it's like the rabbi and the synagogue and the followers in a way. You have the CrossFit owner that is like the rabbi, and whatever he will say, they will follow him. So it's much easier a population than going to a normal gym, for example, because then the relationship is much looser than in the CrossFit. So you need to find the right environment and then find the right vehicle. In our case, it's Instagram, and find the right population. And then when you find that, you might not need to spend too much money.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then you think about it, all these high-profile athletes are completely evangelizing your product.
Exactly.
And they have huge Twitter
Instagram
followers.
Yes.
You did mention something earlier when I asked you about Facebook and the effectiveness of that compared to Instagram and Twitter, and you said it's kind of a dud.
It doesn't,
if I heard you correctly.
It doesn't work for us, yeah. It doesn't. We use it just to show that we have a community, but Twitter and Instagram working much better, and we never pay money there because somehow it's work. And in Facebook, you have to pay money if you want to have more than 20 people to see your post, and there you don't need yet, so it's much more efficient for us.
What about Twitter?
The same. Twitter is working pretty well.
Okay. And then,
But for different audience.
that's what I wanted. Yeah, tell me about that.
In Twitter, we are working more with the endurance crowd, a marathon runner, triathlete, and so on. They are there. So
They're
everyone.
patient. They have enough time to actually type, a couple characters.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. One of the biggest issues with regard to digital health, of course, is how to convince customers that their data is going to be private and secure, or is it? Clearly, it's important for regulators, and if you're hacked, you face a huge public relations crisis. You're going to directly affect the future marketing campaigns. But how important is it that the message for consumers as you're reaching out to them is the correct one with regard to security and privacy? Or do you just avoid that topic completely when you're reaching out to them initially at the risk of raising the specter of a breach? So how do you walk that line with them? We'll start with you, Peter.
I think the idea that you can avoid it, that's past, right? It is such a topic right now that you need to have both a good strategy on how to make sure you actually deal with the reality, and how you're prepared for the time that you will be tested, because somebody's going to test it, and prepared, be prepared for the perception of it. Mm-hmm. Having said that, I don't think it has to be the scary issue that a lot of us think about it, right? If the value exchange is there, people will give all sorts of information, right? And because we've got this paradox right now, the modern consumer, the always-on consumer, and especially with health, right? They want convenience, they want seamlessness, right? From every touch point, it should always be sort of the same conversation picking up again, and they want transparency and openness and simplicity, right? While also wanting privacy and security, right? Which is like really easy, right?
Right.
But if you make the value exchange clear, then people are giving a tremendous amount of information away because they see the reason for it, right? And so two things I think a lot about. Patients like me has been around for a while, but I'm amazed at how much, right? And I'm hoping everybody knows, but for those of you who don't, it's a place where you can go and put your information in, all of your meds, all of your therapies, your diary of your conditions, and you can look up and see people like you, how are they experiencing things. And I have a chronic condition, there's these awful headaches, and the best doctor I ever found was by engaging in one of these communities. And so, of course, why wouldn't I give that information in, right? I'm going to clearly get something back from it, mm-hmm. right? The other story I tell around this is, it's N of one, but I was having a conversation with my mother and trying to explain to her what I do. She still doesn't understand. And we got into talking about creating these experiences to help behavior change and fix the health system. And she's like, well, I would never give my information to a health insurance company. I said, okay. And I happened to know that she was walking to Jerusalem. She was part of this program where she and her friends, so it was a community, which definitely helps, drive behavior change. And they would get together and enter in their information, their Fitbit information, and on their journey, enough steps to get to Jerusalem. And we were talking about, what I do and how that might expand. And what if you had stops along the way and they gave you maybe recipes or saw videos or talked to people who were there, and she said, oh, that would be wonderful. And would you give them information about what you were interested? Oh, sure, I would do that. And your friendship network, oh, sure, I would give all of that. Oh, this would be wonderful. You should go out and build that. And
how about your social security?
Right, absolutely.
And your blood type.
And what I realized is that people are willing to give information to an experience, right, that they're getting value back from. There isn't as much fear about that. Matter of fact, I think we're all becoming very used to that, whether it's Mint or, whatever it happens to be. If there's an experience where you get very clear value back, that's sort of a natural, almost of a given. If it's the company that's asking you for this information, right, then that becomes something scary, because we all know that maybe, or we believe that the company doesn't have our best interests in mind. Mm-hmm. So that's the perception. And then I would say there are realities, you have to build into your products, security and privacy by design. It has to be, an upfront concern, and it has to be built into the entire experience and the messaging and the architecture. You have to think about how you're going to be integrating with the hospitals. If you're generating patient-generated health data, you should really actually know that and understand the implications of that, and then think about how you're going to integrate, if you're going to have the standards for it. Your commercial policies need to be set up. I was talking to a cybersecurity expert about this, and he said most of the business deals he sees now that are dying is because they got to security and privacy, and no one had really thought about that, and that's where the deal breaks down. So I think there's got to be this balance between having the value, dealing with the perception, but then also making sure you're covered on the back end.
Right, and I want to get to you in just a moment, Gil. We had talked a little bit earlier about, not in this conversation, about the fact that in order for these applications to flourish in the future, they're going to have to be ported to many other places. It could be a healthcare provider, it could be another app, it could be Fitbit, whatever it might be, an insurance company. And in order to make that possible, you've got to have all those privacy and security systems locked down, or else your partner is going to run away from you, right?
Yeah, and with that, I would say that, and this goes back to your question of all the apps, that if you are trying to create a single experience, it's going to be very hard for you to get out into market, right? Because now you're competing with it's 165,000 as of last October. Who knows how many it's going to be by tomorrow, right? So you need to start thinking about how you fit in a larger service ecosystem. So it's not a product, it's a service. It's not a service. You actually fit into a wider ecosystem. And I looked at Mark's presentation, and there are all of these great innovations that are out there, but they're not connected yet. And I think that the warrior will find the ones that are important to them. The striver and the struggler are going to get overwhelmed until they fit into an ecosystem that a payer or a provider is going to be like, yeah, that's going to help my population move.
And Aetna is going to hand it off to them, or
absolutely.
Whatever.
But now that you're part of an ecosystem, now you have to figure out how am I going to integrate into it, and how am I going to give data to the doctor. Doctors are already overwhelmed, right? There's a patient summit. MoDev had a patient summit just 2 weeks ago, and we were talking about patient experience, and the doctors were all saying how fundamentally overwhelmed they are with all this, and now you want to add in patient-generated health data. If you do it in a way that's not integrated, it's this increasing burden. So you have to find a way that it fits within what they're trying to do, and so then you have to plan for that from a security privacy perspective.
Gil, how about you? I mean, especially when it comes to liquid gold, you're asking people for that, and you've got to make sure that fear is locked down.
So it's a very important question, and again, it's a matter of cost versus value. So in addition to asking you to give us your liquid gold, we're also asking you a lot of questions, but each question will give you a better recommendation or more personal recommendation. So we ask you, what do you eat? Not because I care if you eat apple or banana, but because I can tell you whether the apple is better for you than the banana. And I ask you, how often do you eat it, and how do you exercise? Again, to give you a more refined recommendation. Now, as to the security, so we are doing the best that we can. We have a server for your demographic information, different server for your medical information. And both of them are completely encrypted. And you need the code, and everything is as good as Bet Israel have secured their data. But still, you need to take in mind to even the FBI server have been hacked. So every place can be hacked. But we are doing the best that we can to keep it as secure and as good as it can be. And as we heard earlier today, usually the hacking is not because of a problem with a breach with the server, but it's more like someone left his computer, or someone download by mistake all the data, including the names of the clients, and those usually the problems, not the problem of a breach of the server.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we are. I want to hand it off to the audience right now because we're getting low on time, short on time. So if you would please use the microphones, and I'll try to repeat the question if it's not clear. So anybody who has a question, please raise your hand. Oh, tell me.
I think drinks are afterwards.
Yeah.
Motivation. I think we found the segment's motivation. Yeah.
Okay, going once. Oh, excellent.
Hi, this is Monique Kelly with Weber Shandwick. Gil, question for you. Is your technology offered at this point to people like me, or how would we go about getting that, and what's the cost of it?
Yes, so it's available for everyone. The cost is as low as $49 if you are having your blood test from your physician, because if you look at the data from the physician, if you got it once, it's like a PDF with a dark text that numbers that you don't understand and then range that you don't understand. What we do is we bring it to life. We show you what is your normal range, but also what is your optimal range based on your age, gender, ethnicity, athletic activity. And then if you are not optimized, we can tell you what kind of food you should eat out of 8,000 food that are available. And if you are vegan, we'll set it for vegan, and if you are on paleo diet, we'll set it on paleo diet. We're also looking at goals. So the biomarkers are connected to goals that connected to intervention. So if your goal is to sleep better, we'll look only on the biomarkers that are not optimized, that are connected to sleep, and then we'll give you a recommendation what should you do related to that. So we are definitely going for every one of you. And the goal is to serve all the world, not only you. So we have a long way to go.
And these are annual fees, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not too bad. Yeah.
Other questions? Oh, yeah. We have two. You could choose that one is closer.
Well, actually, Bob, this one's for you. My name's Lisa. I work with Cambridge Biomarketing. I'm wondering what type of content people are consuming on STAT in terms of health content, because it's such an interesting new product. You have a plethora of content.
Wow, thank you. Short answer is everything. We get really. For those of you who aren't familiar with STAT, we're a new health sciences, life sciences publication. We're beneath the Boston Globe Enterprises family of companies, but we are national and separate from the Globe property, and we're only online. So we do everything from Petri dish all the way through end-of-life stories, and we've got long 3,000-word features that are riveting and very small Q&As that are effective, we think. We've gotten a lot of feedback across the board, fortunately, so far, for all those various segments of our editorial. So I think there's a lot of hunger for, and we get a lot of great feedback for the types of stories that debunk science myths or take a close look at. We were talking about this earlier, Peter. Is coffee good for you? Those kinds of questions. Trying to follow the bouncing ball back and forth about cholesterol and eggs or butter, what it might be, whatever that might be. So we're fortunate enough where we can do a deep dive on those types of things and really take a close look at the science, whereas other publications may not be able to tackle that and offer it to a mainstream audience the way we're striving to. So thank you for that question. Sorry for the pitch, but that's so far so good.
Don't need this. I have a very loud voice. This question is for Peter. What would you say are the biggest barriers to insurance companies, say, working with one of these apps, like from a partnership, from business partnership, and then also sharing of information?
I think the insurance companies are I'm not sure if this is a barrier, but they're trying to think through how do they go from pricing risk to managing risk, right? And especially as we're moving more towards value-based care, how can they extend the relationship and change the relationship from somebody that you don't want to deal with to somebody who's become a really good partner? And in particular, somebody who, the brand-consumer relationship is one where they're actually, they know you and they support you. Humana has some really great language around this. Show me that you care, right? And so to change that brand promise and relationship is challenging, but there's a lot of great exploration in this, and to do it in a way that it's not all about the data, but it's understanding what is that person's aspiration, and how can we help them achieve that aspiration that's meaningful to them, that gets to sort of that 5% versus 95% that Kristen was talking about earlier, right? Sort of that emotional. So how do you tap into that emotional side of things? And I think that's challenging for insurance companies, but as they rethink how they engage with their customers and they rethink how they can have value in a very long-term relationship, they're better able to position themselves as a better partner for care. Great, thanks.
Empathy. Any other questions? Okay. I want to thank everyone for hearing us out today. I want to thank, of course, Peter and Gil for a really interesting conversation. Really interesting.